Hi everyone, I'm Emma Carmel, your host, and you're watching Breathe TV, a space to come to exhale and transform throughout your breast cancer journey. And in honor of being in the space of Breathe TV, I want you to join me in a grounding exercise meditation. So I'm going to ask those of you who are watching with me, close your eyes and maybe sit on a comfortable cushion, a chair, or on the floor. And I'm going to guide you through a meditation that will help you to center with us as you're watching this empowering and beautiful episode. And so close your eyes and you can put your hands on your chest or on your belly, wherever you're most comfortable. And take a deep breath, one breath in and out. Another healing breath in and out. And say these words after me. I embody love.
I embody love.
I embody light.
I embody light.
I am grounded.
I am grounded.
My breath is calm.
My breath is calm.
I am in my breath.
I am in my breath.
I am safe.
I am safe.
I am whole.
I am whole.
I have all that I need.
I have all that I need.
I am here.
I am here.
Take one more cleansing breath in and out. And now we're grounded. So for those who are watching this, I have two incredible guests with me today. Dr. Angelique Richardson, who's a heart-centered oncologist, and her focus is on health disparities and ways to overcome that in the medical system. We have angel advocate Kim Skinner with us as well, who was misdiagnosed and had delays in her treatment. And she had multiple barriers to care that almost could have cost her her life. We're discussing today clinical trials, research, and science, but before that is the patient and the patient's journey and their voice, because you are what drives change in the healthcare system. So for those who are watching, I want you to share who is the beautiful Kim Skinner, what your journey was, and what inspired you to become more involved in science and research.
Like I said, I'm Kimberly Skinner. I'm a single mother of two. I've been working in healthcare since the age of 19. I felt a lump in my left breast, and I'm a jokester, so I went to work and I told my doctor who I was working for at the time that I needed him to look at my boobies. And he said, Kimmy, I'm not looking at your boobies. I said, no, there's something there. And so I had an appointment, an examination, and he said you had a 2-finger width mass on your left breast, and he wanted me to give him a mammogram. I'm a workaholic, and so I worked through a Saturday and a Sunday, came back in on Monday, and my doctor at the time said, I was waiting all weekend for your results of your mammogram. I said I didn't go. I didn't go to the appointment because cancer wasn't on my radar. I just thought it was just another lump in my breast. So I put myself first. I went and had a mammogram done. And the team that was around me said, you're too young, don't worry about it. It's probably just nothing. It's just probably a fibrous mass, but no cancer, you're too young for that. I got a call the following day that said, Kimmy, I don't know what type of cancer it is, but it's cancer. So my life stopped there.
I know that we talk about, I got diagnosed and then this and that happened, but that's a huge shift. Your entire world ceases to exist. And you think, well, I'm going to just get a call. They're going to say I'm fine. And then no, but your world stops. Can you share what it felt like to hear those words and what shifted for you?
When I heard cancer, I didn't hear anything else. I was frozen in that spot. And I stood in that spot for quite some time during even my treatment because I couldn't believe that it was me. As I said, there was no cancer on my radar. There was none in my family. And I didn't know what to do. Being on the other side of healthcare, I have given that diagnosis, and I had to learn how to now become the patient. And through my research and through different things, I learned how to start asking some little questions, but afraid to ask the big questions.
So, what were the little questions versus the big questions?
So for me, the big question was, what happens next? So all the movies that I had seen growing up was you had cancer and then they passed away. So being a single mother of two, I was so afraid to even tell my children that I had cancer. I was afraid to even tell my family. So I didn't tell my family right off. It was with my clinical team that helped me get the voice to even tell my family. I was living in a city all by myself and my family was around the world, and I was diagnosed right when the pandemic hit, which made my challenge even more tough.
Yeah, I want to come back to that. The entire world is disrupted. You can't get screening. Docs aren't calling you back. I'm sure that delayed your treatment. Dr. Richardson, being an oncologist, but also a heart-centered oncologist, how did you function when they're knowing as a Black woman and a woman, an oncologist who cares about people, knowing that there are patients like Kimi who were waiting to get screened and get treatment that had to wait?
It was a very, very uncomfortable time for me during COVID. In the beginning of when this COVID pandemic started, we didn't even know it was going to be a pandemic at that time. We didn't know very much about it at all. So there was fear on the all around on the healthcare side. We stopped doing cancer screenings. Essentially, it went down to almost where we weren't doing any cancer screenings, and we were just doing the what we called surgeries that were needed, and emergent things. And we weren't having as many people coming in and out of the healthcare system. People were also afraid to come into the hospitals for screening. And now, being this far out into the pandemic, we have studies showing that, unfortunately, during that time, because of that happening, a lot more women are presenting with more advanced disease. So they have the breast cancer that's already a lot larger, or it's already spread to stages that are a lot more difficult to treat. And so that was the part that was frightening for me, is that would possibly be the reality. And we are seeing that is the reality.
COVID also brought to light some things that were in the dark. Beyond COVID, there were things that happened that showed that patients weren't getting, into clinical trials. They weren't asked to be involved in research and science and understand certain things, which also worked to their detriment as well. Can you talk about how the past may have contributed to the exacerbation of the problems we saw during COVID with Black and Brown people?
Yeah. So unfortunately, during COVID, although the Black population makes up about 13%, we're 24% of COVID related deaths. And so, that the interesting thing, or the unfortunate thing for me, being a researcher in health disparities, particularly survival disparities for Black women, we know that Black women, unfortunately, like what happened with you, Kimi, Black women are more likely to be diagnosed with breast cancer under the age of 40. We are also more likely to be diagnosed with more aggressive forms of breast cancer. And so a lot of these things, unfortunately, were made worse during the COVID pandemic for multiple reasons, including loss of insurance and those sorts of things. And so this pandemic just worsened a lot of these disparity issues. And I guess one silver lining is that this has brought to the forefront for a lot of people these things that we have been trying to fight for and highlight for so long. It's given me hope, because now there are more platforms and people are actually starting to say, oh, this is an issue and we should address it. COVID has in that way shined a light onto these things that we have been dealing with for a long time. And so a lot of the issues with Black and Brown patients, there's been a lot of mistrust with the medical community. I mean, we all know about Henrietta Lacks and her HeLa cells. I've done research using her cells as a graduate student, and I was not aware of her story until I was much older. And I know that a lot of the therapies that we use were as a result, not just for cancer, but diabetes and other things. But this was a time where they weren't asking, and we didn't know what they were doing with our samples. And we all know about Tuskegee and the syphilis experiment there, where even when we did have a treatment available, Black men were denied treatment so that they can see how the course of syphilis affects people. I mean, and there was so much harm that was done in the Black community. And I always tell my patients, we know about those things in the past, but it's not just those things in the past. It's the fact, like what you're saying, Kimi, going in and sometimes feeling like you're not being heard. You're saying there's something wrong. There's a lump here. No, you're too young for that. It's your voice being muted even in the present, not feeling like you're being listened to and heard. So that's the point that I always bring out. Yes, we know those past things, but it's still the present things that are affecting our trust and mistrust and being able to feel comfortable in things like clinical trials.
There are all these things that have happened, and the things that happen every single day. And speaking to that, there's so many things that Kimi went through. Can you share with the viewers what you went through?
I faced a lot of different barriers. One, there was no one that looked like me on my team. They told me I was young, I was strong. My pain that I felt wasn't real. I would go in for treatment, and they would ask, well, what else are you taking? I'm not taking anything. I'm just literally in pain. I lost my insurance, and my treatment was paused because there wasn't a payment for it. I had to go look for different resources to try to get my chemotherapy to be taken care of. Co-pays, treatment was stopped because a copay wasn't able to get paid. I didn't have transportation to get to treatment. That delayed treatment also. It was one hurdle after another that I had to endure. But also, I had different women that were going through the same thing and finding out they had all these resources that were never, ever mentioned to me. And that made a lot of mistrust in my team. So I stopped believing what they were saying, because I'm like, somebody right here next to me, the same age, is getting all these resources and they're not given to me.
No one should be denied insurance in the middle of treatment. Any point. You're fighting for your life, right? And then they deny your insurance. You can't get treatment. But people need to know this, that while we're working to end these barriers, there are people like Kimi who pursued all the right things, yet because of systemic racism and dismissal and denial, she had been delayed, her treatment was delayed. So you weren't cared for. You were literally, they were saying you can't pay for this, so you're gonna just go die of cancer. That's what they're saying to you, right? And then, trust in trials. Can you share with the viewers what you did to overcome that? Because you just had to badass it, right?
I researched. No one was talking to me. I was placing phone calls. No one was returning my calls back. I would sit day and night in pain and all, but I was researching different resources that were out there. And I made a vow that if I made it, I was going to be the voice for everybody and scream as loud as I can. This needs just to be offered just all the way across the board. It shouldn't be that somebody has to ask for it. Because truthfully, I didn't know what I needed. I had no idea what was out there or how hard this journey would be for me. So I tell everybody, ask those hard questions, because that one question you ask will save your life.
The one question you could ask could save your life. That is so important, so you have to ask the question. Dr. Richardson, how do we fix the bigger problem when this is happening on a microscopic level? Everywhere you ask, and look, there's not one Black patient I've talked to that has not had multiple microaggressions towards her in the healthcare system. This is beyond her life, every day being Black. How do you fix the problem?
Unfortunately, this story, you hear it over and over and over again from Black women. And so personally, what I try to do is I try to be involved in the committees that look at these things from a systems level, because, what are the systems that we can put in place to make sure that this doesn't happen? One of the things that we implemented is we make sure that our social worker sees every new patient that's going to undergo chemotherapy. Every single person gets to see them, whether they have identified needs or not. So that this is a resource. That's one thing, but there's multiple things that I think we can do. These things are systemic, whether people recognize them or not. And people have different biases that they don't even recognize in these different microaggressions. And so, it's hard to go to each provider and say, did you realize you did this and didn't do that? But I think if we try to put things in place that can be a safety net, then that can be one way that we can help to do this. And I actually try to highlight the voice of our patient advocates. And I say, here's a place at the table. These are the people we need to talk to. And so they have a space that they can talk about these things and talk to the people who actually can change them. But it's a long road. We've been doing this for so long, and it's gonna be, we can only chip away at it little by little, but we have to keep working, because the alternative of doing nothing is it's unacceptable.
This is what we want more of. It's one thing to say the problem's there, this system's broken, but who's gonna fix the problem? It has to be each and every one of us. Mm-hmm. And so, Kimi, you're doing things within Tigerlily with your voice now. With other stakeholders, we're partnering to create solutions. Talk about what you're doing to engage patients to build trust in healthcare and trials.
One thing that resounded with me was the power of one. One voice can make a difference. So on a daily, I said I would never throw that rock of cancer and not have a support for the rippling effects that come after it. So I'm talking with different providers. On my off days, I'm going to cancer centers and breast centers and say, hey, this young population, we still need support. We still need somebody to have a voice for us. And if you don't have somebody there, I'll be the voice. We do not always have to be the strong one. It's okay to lean on somebody. And for my journey, I didn't have that support to lean on. So I am that for so many people. And I'm so thankful for having the life to be here and the strength to be able to do that for other people.
Were you ever offered a clinical trial, Kimi?
I was never offered a clinical trial at all. I didn't know about a clinical trial till I was at the end of my treatment. And after doing research, I found out that a clinical trial doesn't have to be the end all. It can be your beginning. It can actually have so many positive things. I know as I talk about it now, a lot of individuals think of the negative, but for me, I try to let them know the positive of it, the financial support that can be there, the additional tests and studies that can be there. And also you can be part of the groundbreaking floor of medicine. You may be the one that helps save your daughters, save your sisters, save your cousins.
What you said, Kimmy, about the power of one, I agree so wholeheartedly with that. And so we have, at the institution where I am, we have a community outreach and engagement group. And so I invited one of our Black patients who is a strong advocate in the Black community to come and sit on that community advisory board. And so her being there, she gives a voice to a lot of the groups that she goes to. And she says, yeah, but when you say this, or you come this way, this is how we're going to take it. She says, you may come and ask us, what kind of trials would we be interested in? Have we heard about this trial? If we are not participating, why? Is it because we don't have transportation? Part of the reason why Black women don't enroll is because they may not have information, but that's not the whole picture. So I think that helps to chip away at some of these, just the voice of one speaking for the
power of one. I love that. You talk to how you're engaging patients, which is really important in the research process. Even when you build a research question, is the question the right question? How are you asking the question? How do you build with the patient to co-curate solutions? And even with myself, I'll be honest, when I was first diagnosed, I thought people who got trials were people who were metastatic breast cancer patients. That's what I was taught. If you're end of life, but that's not true. Kimi, I believe you're triple negative. You're a TNBC patient. Yeah, I am too. And up until 3 years ago, there were no treatments targeting triple negative breast cancer because we were not asked to be in trials. You get this diagnosis and they want you to be a CEO of a cancer like expert overnight. You're like, Kimmy, your head's spinning. You can't think. You're freaking numb, right?
For me, it was really the terminology. Some things would just shut me off. So I was like, we can't say that. Therapy and counseling, it was just like something, I was crazy or something. And so in clinical trials, it was, well, it's a trial. It was a tone that was said, and I said, well, I don't want to do that because I'm just like I'm a test dummy or something. Until somebody on Tigerlily's side I started talking to, and that's when I found out that it doesn't have to be the end all. It's a great positive thing that can come out. And having individuals that look like you that you don't have to give the background of your fear. They see the fear, they recognize that fear, and they give resources to clinical trials without you having to fight for the research to go and look for it, because you're already fighting for your life. Now you have to, when you're supposed to be resting, you're researching, trying to figure out how to save your life.
Would you say that you have a different opinion of trials now, Kimmy?
Very much so. I wish that I had the information at the beginning of my cancer journey. Clinical research is very vital to our healing. I always say now, don't let your fear cripple your healing.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let your fear cripple your healing.
Mm-hmm.
That is so important. I mean, people are oftentimes so scared they don't follow what could be best for them, or be healing. So Tigerlily, one of our core programs that I so love, is our Angel Advocacy Program, where we train Black women from communities that have the highest breast cancer death rates to become angel advocates, of which Kimi is a proud angel advocate. And they work with physicians, they work with healthcare systems, oncologists, radiologists, surgeons, they work with scientists, they work with policymakers and sponsors to really represent Black women. But also, to Kimmy's point, sometimes you don't know what to ask. You have to figure out on Google. That's not right. Google's not often the right place to go. So how can we help build patients some kind of toolkit to ask the right questions before their appointments so they're in control, to be more empowered at their appointments, and to be more empowered throughout the clinical trial process, and to be able to adhere to the clinical trial?
I was actually working with a graduate student who we're also trying to build an interactive resource where they can, basically it just gives you the information about this is what a clinical trial is, these are what it means to be in different phases of a clinical trial, but then also what are the important questions to take to the doctor's office. And this was going to be something that was going to be on different platforms and on social media, but also hopefully on our community outreach and engagement website for the same thing, so that you can know, okay, these are at least the initial questions to ask when I go in and I ask about clinical trials. But also we're trying to work on the other side to help our providers also to realize, there's lots of studies showing that we have biases on a provider side. I mean, you mentioned some of those. We don't refer Black patients to clinical trials, and some of the reasons that came out in those studies is because there's a bias that, Black women don't want to be enrolled, or that they're not going to adhere to treatment and those sorts of things. And so we want to make providers also aware of, if there's these alerts that come up that this patient is eligible, there should be a process that says you have to click or at least document why you're not recommending that person. And so at least it brings it to your mind. Yeah, why am I not recommending this person? This person is actually eligible, and so I should. And so those are a couple of tools that I think could help with this.
Dr. Richardson, I'm so glad that you said that. When I was going through treatment, I had a label on my chart that said non-compliant. I wasn't non-compliant. I couldn't get the medication. I couldn't get to the treatment. So we gotta change that mentality. Find out why the patient isn't there, why the patient isn't going to a clinical trial. Dig just a little bit deeper. Take the time to, like I said, build that trust.
Also, we have to change how we talk about our Black women. We're not non-compliant, not adherent. There are things that are preventing us from being compliant, that are systemically preventing that. I mean, overall. But you're both working to change that, and I'm so proud that you are doing that. We need more of you in the world. We really do. Before we go, I want to do two things. And if I could ask you, what is one word you would share around clinical trials? Dr. Richardson?
Hope. Hope.
Kimi?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Hope. There's hope if there's a trial going on that we can find a cure for this disease.
The other questions, if there was one thing you could do, to change the future of trials, what would that be? Kimi?
Always find a seat at the table. If they don't make a seat for you, kick the door down and get your voice in that room.
I love it. Dr. Richardson?
Yeah, I love that. I want to steal that one. I mean, I was going to say something very similar to make sure representation, make sure that you are represented. So that's, yeah, exactly the same.
Well, this has been such an inspiring conversation. Kim, I adore you so much. I know we haven't had time to talk much, but I just love you, and your energy is so beautiful and large, and keep being you. And we at Tigerlily love you so much, and we're always here for you. Whatever you're dealing with, you are never, ever alone. Okay?
I feel it.
Dr. Richardson, thank you for being a heart-centered oncologist. I always remind physicians that you took an oath to protect your patient. That's your first and foremost job. And that you do that, you live and breathe it, but you put it out there that you are heart-centered, that you're still doing the right thing. And so I really honor you in what you do. And
Thank you.
I hold you in much respect and regard and support you in your work as well. Thank you. For those who are watching, you've got to meet two incredible women who are living their sole purpose and working to build trust and truth and transparency in clinical trials. Most importantly, they're about hearing people, about listening, leaning in, learning, and leveraging the learnings you've heard to transform these systems that don't work for us. At the heart of all we do is love and seeing people's humanity. Until next time, sending you all much love, many blessings, stay safe. Love you so much, and bye for now. Thank you. Heart to you both. Heart, and namaste. Thank you. God bless you.